It's a pleasure to be here, this very important and amazing event. It's been a long time in making and long overdue for the birth keepers, breastfeeding advocates, birth practitioners, doulas, breastfeeding counselors to come together and talk about this important connection between the way we give birth and the breastfeeding journey and the role the childbirth experience plays in the mother's life and in the life of the family and in the life of the community. If you are not familiar with the word doula, everybody knows who doula is? Okay, in case there are people in the audience who are yet new to the concept of doula, doula is a professional birth companion who is strictly not medical. Doula is to mother the mother, to provide her with the psychological, emotional, and physical support during childbirth, to provide her with the care, with the loving massage, with the food, with the smiles, just to get her through that intense experience, in collaboration with the family, with the husband who is also present usually during the childbirth experience. So this is in case you don't know who doula is. Okay, I would like to start talking about giving birth and its relationship to the human rights matters. I would like to start by reminiscing the beautiful birth that I recently attended in Shipra Birthing Home in Tai. As you see right on the cover of my presentation, the mother what is she doing? She's pushing her baby out. Well, that pushing took 4 hours to happen. It was inside the pool, outside of the water pool, in the squat, on the birthing chair, up and down, up and down. It was a lot of hard work to push that baby out. The labor, I think, took altogether about 20 hours. So as you see in the beautiful pictures taken by Isabel Steinert at the birth, there is a lot of activity, right? So the mother is out for a walk with the husband, then they're just walking around and changing positions in the birthing room. Then all of a sudden she's head down and hips up with the doula pressing onto her hips. So what is happening? Well, there are ways to correct the baby position. So birth is a very, very active affair. And then there was pushing for 4 hours. And the mother was jubilant, as well as the entire birthing team. It was a village effort, to say so. It was a triumphant. So yes, the mother had achieved the birth experience that she wanted, and she had all the support that she collected, and she has a very positive and empowering birth memory. Now I would like to read a different kind of birth story from a website, My Birth Story Matters. If you like, you can look it up, mybirthstorymatters.weebly.com. In your handout, you have the link. It's an online portal that we as a community opened up for collection of different kinds of birth stories. Some may be jubilant and triumphant, and some may be less than that. Some may be traumatizing. So I would like to read from one of the birth stories that was submitted on this website. In the delivery room, several devices were strapped in my body. I tried refusing the IV, but I was told that it was a must. I asked to see my husband or my mother, but even just for a few minutes, but my request was repeatedly denied. I put a small white towel in my mouth to muffle my screams during my labor pains. More IEs followed. I woke up at 7 a.m. still pregnant. Finally, my OB told me I was taking too long at 5 c.m., so she told me that she will rupture my water bag. And when I saw the long instrument that was about to insert inside my vagina, I gave the loudest scream I ever heard myself giving, and then everything turned black. When I opened my eyes, I felt numb. I looked around me and I saw an old man sleeping on another bed beside me. And I hadn't realized that I was already in the recovery room. After what seemed like forever, a nurse saw me and said, "Hi, Mom, do you want to see your baby?" Still disoriented, I asked, "Huh? Have I given birth already?" She said, "Yes," and brought my son to me. When I saw him, I felt nothing. I tried to offer my breast, but he wouldn't latch. I was so disappointed because I had every intention to exclusively breastfeed, plus I couldn't feel any connection to my baby. It was like looking at a complete stranger. At first, I couldn't figure out why I don't remember giving birth. I felt cheated because I never heard my baby's first cry. There was no first embrace unang yakap, which I was even unaware of at that time. Later on, I learned from my mom that my OB told her that I wouldn't remember anything because she gave me as much anesthesia as a cancer patient would have received. My doctor never realized that my screams hadn't been just out of pain, but more out of fright. So this is another birth story that also matters. We have two similar outcomes: healthy mothers and healthy babies. But one has a positive, joyful memory of the most important day of her life. And the other is carrying a trauma with her for the rest of her life about the birth of her first child. So, is the birth story matter? Yes, it does. Penny Simkin is a childbirth educator and one of the founders of the doula professions in the United States, which is now spreading globally because mothers need care, mothers matter. One said, "No other life event entails pain, emotional stress, vulnerability, positive physical injury, and until recent times, the threat of death, combined with the permanent role change necessitating responsibility for a helpless, dependent human being. What's more, all this takes place in one single day. No wonder women remember birth vividly and with deep emotion." So she conducted a mini study. As she's been practicing childbirth education and doula support for about 20 years, she approached mothers whom she worked with 20 years ago and asked them to write their birth story. And it's worth mentioning, she also asked them to write their birth story 20 years ago when it just happened. So when she read those birth stories, they were pretty much identical, because women do remember that one important day of their life, as it was happened yesterday. But what particularly deserved attention, it was not the way or the manner that women give birth. It might have been a vaginal birth, cesarean birth, complicated or smooth, pain-free, or any which way. What really came forward from those stories is the memory of the emotional experience. Some wept with joy, exclaiming, "Oh, it was the best day of my life. It was my Mount Everest. I know I accomplished something." And others wept from remorse. Because of what I experienced in the delivery room, I feel powerless, commented one mom. "I was too embarrassed to make a big fuss. I didn't want to be a nuisance or upset the nurses," said another. So yes, we carry the memory of our childbirth through the lifetime. And this is why we want to get the message out that we really have to care what kind of memory women in general, large, will have. Let's have a look at the reality of birth today. Unfortunately, most of the facility-based births are not necessarily gentle or family-centered. As Armi mentioned in her opening remarks, that she had experienced a family-centered birth, and she got all emotional about that. Right? Why? Because Armi also experienced with the firstborn not so family-centered care, and what kind of difference it made in her life to experience a family-centered care. Facility-based births are heavily medicated, managed, time-scheduled. There is a phenomenon of cascade of intervention, which goes paired with the loss of freedom to move, assume comfortable positions. Then we have a statistics of 1 in 4 women feeling haunted by their birth experience, describing the event as traumatic. According to 1995 study by Dr. William Emerson, 95% of all births in the United States, of course we have their statistics, are considered traumatic, 50 rated as moderate and 45 as severe trauma. And this is on the most important day of your life. You end up carrying a trauma for the rest of your life. And then we have a cesarean epidemic. Cesarean birth rates increased from 5% in the 50s to 30, 70%, depending on the hospital facility. So what is going on, really? WHO recommended rate is about 10 to 15%. So let's just keep that in mind. It is, of course, a big step forward in the international development and in the international consensus documents that prioritizes survival of the mother in childbirth and the child. So we are all talking about maternal mortality and infant mortality and the survival rates. And it gets a high place on any development agenda. But aside of the popularity, desired outcome of a healthy mother and a healthy baby, there is also room in that equation for happy, non-traumatized, empowered, and elated mother and baby, as per the magazine Midwifery Today. So let's have a look at what rights childbearing women have on the most important day of their life. Well, first of all, it's the right to informal consent. So when a doctor or a healthcare provider recommends an intervention or treatment, they do have a legal obligation to inform the patient of the risk and benefits and the full range of options available to the patient. This right to informed consent recognizes that 10 rational pregnant people with similar clinical charts might make 10 different decisions about what they need for a healthy birth. And this is why one-size-fits-all protocol dictated assembly line maternity care violates the right to informed consent and fails to promote health and well-being. Right to privacy. The right to privacy protects every person's ability to make personal decisions about sexuality, reproduction, and the family without government interference. In terms of maternity care, the application of the right of privacy is the woman's right to choose the circumstances of her birth. And recognition of the right to choose the circumstances of the childbirth should actually go with the full range of options, whether it's a home birth or birthing center birth or hospital-based birth. So when the government puts a ban on home births, for example, women will still choose to do that, but it will simply make the practice unsafer for them. Right to equal treatment. The human right to equal treatment means that each person should be given the same options and support in maternity care as other people, and not stigmatized on the basis of personal characteristics. So of course here we are talking about underprivileged people, people of color, or people with different HIV status, or any other thing that labels people as different and somehow seemingly less worthy than others. So no, everybody has the right to equal treatment. Right to health, there is not much to say about it. It's very straightforward. So in maternity care, the right to health demands affordable access to full range of healthcare services necessary for pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum period. We need more midwives in the communities, so along with the safe, hygienic environment, emergency medical services, and essential reproductive health medicines, and skilled birth attendants. So it's not without the right to refuse medical treatment. Okay. It means that the patient has the legal right and authority in decisions about their care. The patient has the right to consider the doctor's recommendation, including an offer for surgery, for example, or another intervention, and say yes or no. Okay? And the right to say no is a human right. And of course, a patient can agree and say yes, but yes is not meaningful without the right to decline or refuse and say no. And the overarching right is, of course, the right to life. And we're talking here about the right to life of a mother and of a baby. In the context of the developing countries, yeah, the maternal mortality is still exceptionally high. And as once Mahmoud Fatala said, women are not dying of disease that we can't treat, they're dying because societies have yet to make the decisions that their life are worth saving. So let's talk about the right to life for a baby. In many occasions, when the woman is making choices about, or unconventional choices about her childbirth experience, it's counter-argument. So how about the baby? Who's gonna talk about the baby's right to life? But it's really with the mother, like the heart that beats for two is the decisive heart, is the heart that decides. The maternal fetal dyad is the best protected when the birthing mother is respected as a competent decision maker for herself and her child. And again, the laws that restrict women's reproductive options don't change their choices. They might only make them unsafer. All these rights are based in the international conventions, as International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention on the Elimination of all form discrimination against women, and Declaration of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, along with many other documents. One of my favorite quotes: if a woman doesn't look like a goddess during labor, then someone is not treating her well. Mind that. So let's introduce the concept of gentle birth. There is a growing community here in the Philippines. It's called Gentle Birth in the Philippines. Join the Facebook page and you'll see a lot of different stories and discussions of how to make birth more family-centered and more intimate happening rather than purely medical experience. So with gentle birth, really everyone wins. As several times it's already been mentioned, gentle birth leads to successful breastfeeding journey. Let's have a look of what is actually happening. There will be more talks about the hormones in birth and pregnancy later on today. But let me just make a quick sketch. During birth, a woman produces all the necessary hormones to get the baby safely out earthwise. So we have oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone of love, connection, empathy. It's there when we connect to people, when we hug each other. It's there when we make love, when we kiss each other, right? So it also happens to be the hormone that makes the uterus contract, right? So that's the hormone that is mainly responsible for bringing the baby out to the world. Oxytocin works in synergy with melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone of relaxation. That's the hormone you develop when you go to bed and to sleep. So you need to relax, you need proper setting, dim lights, maybe relaxing music. And what happens, melatonin is the booster of oxytocin. So the more relaxed you are in labor, the more oxytocin is produced, so the more regular, steady contractions you're experiencing. And then the more oxytocin you produce, the more endorphin the mother's body produces. And endorphin is your natural pains relief. So the nature is wise. It doesn't only put the pain and the contractions in the way, but it also has a mechanism for the mother to cope with them. So those are the endorphins. And endorphins are stimulated by the light massage, laughter, and they have cumulative effect. And they are promoted by oxytocin. So these three hormones work wonderfully together. And then we also have the hormone prolactin. So that's a milk hormone that is responsible for milk production for later when you have your baby, to supply the baby with the precious golden substance that every mother develops, milk. And they all go together. But the only hormone that we actually have to keep at bay is the hormone adrenaline. Adrenaline is a fight and flight hormone. So, for example, if you have a mammal in nature, in labor, like let's say zebra, laboring in savanna, and a lion appears from around the bush, what happens? Zebra stops the labor and runs where she is safe, right? So the same chemistry is happening in the woman's body. If she feels scared, if she feels insecure, if she feels frightened by the surroundings, she produces adrenaline, and that stops the labor or slows down the labor. So we have to keep that at bay, meaning we have to create a positive, loving environment for the woman to be fully relaxed, to peak on her oxytocin, to peak on her prolactin, to peak on her endorphins, and then everything goes smoothly, okay? So, and this is what actually puts the basis for the successful breastfeeding further on, is that cocktail of hormones that happens during labor. Every chemical intervention might have a side effect and sideline the successful development of that hormonal cocktail. Another factor for gentle birth or physiological vaginal birth is microbiome. Are you familiar with what microbiome is? Okay. What if I tell to you germs are us? That we are 90% germs and only 10% human. Okay, so we have more bacteria, fungi, microbes in us, on us, inside us than we have human cells. So this is why the researchers and the latest science started taking a very close look on the birth practice. But where do we get our tons and trillions of bacteria? When does the first exposure happen? Okay, so we are all coming from a sterile environment of the amniotic fluid. So when does the first exposure happen? Exactly when the water bag ruptures and when the baby goes with the head through the mother's vaginal canal. That's when the baby gets all these trillions and gazillions of bacteria, right? From the mother's insides. Okay, and then the bacteria goes inside the baby's gut and populates the gut system, and we all know that healthy gut means healthy immune system, right? So this microbiome prime-ups the immune system for an adequate response later on in life to ward off any bad guys from the environment. So, and what happens when the child bypasses that first exposure? Cesarean-born babies, they don't get the bacteria from the mother's vaginal canal, right? So that was really puzzling for researchers. If you like, look up the documentary microbirth.net that goes into very detail about microbiome and the exposure to microbiome during birth and the repercussions of that exposure or non-exposure on the health of the human being and the public health in general. So the researchers were puzzled, so how come there is such a difference in health status and the health statistics between cesarean-born babies, children, people, adults later on, and vaginally born people. So the cesarean-born babies and adults later on, statistically they are more prone to a variety of diseases: asthma, allergies, diabetes, autoimmune diseases. So is there any role that this different way of entering the role actually playing out? And yes, they're pinpointing that this is exactly what is happening. They're missing out on that first dose of healthy microbes that will prime up the immune system to later on ward off the pathogens from the environment. A good news is that there is a practice that is being now recommended, because cesarean births are part of the reality. There will be always a percentage of women who will need to have a cesarean delivery. So the recommendation is to do the vaginal swabbing or priming up. So when it becomes evident that the cesarean birth is imminent necessary, a multiple-fold gauze is inserted in the mother's birth canal and stays there for about 30 or 40 minutes. And right before the surgery, it is removed, and when the baby is delivered, that soaked cloth gauze is passed all over the baby's body, especially the baby's mouth, nose, the baby's face, so that the colonization by this bacteria occurs. Again, if you want to read more about that, please look up microbirth.net. It's a very extensive documentary with all scientific references and on the latest research on this topic. Okay, why it matters? Another argument. Have you ever heard of limbic imprinting? That birth also matters for the psychological and emotional well-being of the child later on in life. There is such a concept that is also being studied as limbic imprinting. Limbic system in our brain is a part of our brain that is not connected to cortex. Cortex is the part of the brain that is responsible for our cognitive memories. So like what happened, how it happened, the dates. So something tangible date, like tangible data, right? So, but a limbic system in our brain doesn't remember the tangible data, but it stores the memory of feelings and emotions. And it is already there, developed in the fetus, in the womb. So, and it starts storing the memories of feelings and emotions. And the first experience, the first memory that a child stores is the memory of the childbirth experience, of its own birth, even though it's not a cognitive memory, but we remember how we felt. Even we can't really word it, but the memory is stored. This is why the birth advocates birth keepers, international midwife Ivo Robin Lim, and other birth keepers say peace on earth begins with birth, when the baby is born with the intact capacity to love. So when the baby is born and received in the warm hands of her mother or his mother and put on the chest and breastfed, and it all happens in a nice, warm, loving environment, that experience is imprinted in the psyche as the comfort zone of love and trust. But if that first experience is anything less than loving, if the child is whisked away from her mother, if the child is being, unless it's really, really required and life-saving, there is really no need to take the child away from the mother right upon birth. Or if the birth itself was traumatic, mechanical, forceps delivery, so that anything else than loving or traumatic also stores as the comfort zone, okay? And then there is a question of why some people would really recreate some kind of trauma and drama in life, and the work can be traced all the way back to the moment of birth. There was a interesting study done by Swedish scientist, sociologist Bertil Jacobson in the period from 1986, thank you so much, to the year 2000. So he started a very particular group of individuals. And this is really not to scare you, but his findings are very important and really should be taken seriously. So he started a group of individuals that have chosen to take their own lives. And he accessed their birth records. And by analyzing the birth records and correlating the birth circumstances and death circumstances, he made statistically significant correlations, or he found out the statistically significant correlations that people who were drug addicts and who committed suicide, they were found to be drugged at birth, regardless of socioeconomic status, neighborhood, or any other factors. So being drugged at birth might result in drug addiction further on in life. People who sustained, people who have chosen to take their own lives by mechanical means, let's say like jump off the bridge or under the train, so a mechanical action, were found to be more likely to have sustained a mechanical trauma at birth. For example, forceps delivery or vacuum delivery. As I mentioned, people who killed themselves by drugs were found to have been more likely be drugged at birth. And people who killed themselves by asphyxiation, hanging up, were found to be more likely to have been asphyxiated at birth. And again, these studies are not to scare, and they're not the predictors. It doesn't want to say that everyone who has sustained a birth trauma would end up committing suicide. So it doesn't want to say that, but there is this statistically significant correlation that came out of study. So we can see the birth practices or the birth outcomes that are traumatic, that they are contributors to the life of disease. Okay. Again, I would like to repeat what the birth keepers believe and promote and propagate, that peace at birth, peace on earth begins with birth. And to conclude my talk, I would like to show you a very inspiring video of a mother's journey through 3 births and just get a feel of what it is to go through a family-centered birth.
Her eyes make stars look like they're not shining. Her hair falls perfectly without her trying. She's so beautiful, and I tell her every day. I know, when I compliment her, she won't believe me. And it's so sad to think that she don't see what I see. But every time she asks me, do I look okay? I say, when I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change. 'Cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. Oh, her lips, I could kiss them all day if she'd let me. Her laugh, she hates, but I think it's so pretty. She's so beautiful, and I tell her every day. Oh, you know, I never ask you to change. If perfect's what you're searching for, then just stay the same. So don't even bother asking if you look okay. You know I'll say, when I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change. 'Cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. The way you are, the way you are. Girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. When I see your face, there's not a thing that I would change. 'Cause you're amazing, just the way you are. And when you smile, the whole world stops and stares for a while. 'Cause girl, you're amazing, just the way you are.
Thank you so much. I hope I could bring forth the message of the importance of gentle birth and mothers' birth stories. And I know that speakers after me will go more into details about the connection of breastfeeding and birth, and also the steps of how to make more gentle birth practices a reality everywhere and for women of every economic status and means. So thank you so much. I didn't include here on the last slide. If you would like to know about my work as a doula, you can find me on consciousbirthmanila.com or follow me on Instagram, Irina_doula. Thank you so much.